Welcome to the iPhoneography podcast. It's Monday, March 24th as we record this. And we got a pretty good show for you tonight. We're going to talk about an editing app that's been around for a while. And, actually, we're just actually starting to use it a little bit. So, something new for us anyway. And I'll bring in Mr. Dave Podner. Hi, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing good tonight, Greg. Hopefully
Why don't you
everyone's
tell
doing
everybody where you
also.
got that funky background?
Yeah, I got the funky background here. I just went to ChatGPT and gave it the prompt of make a design a background for an iPhone photography podcast, and it gave me, well, you could do this or an abstract color, and I'm like, okay, abstract sounds good, and I said, okay, make the picture, and it all of a sudden just made this picture here. The back, other than this massive, big old lens there in the middle, actually looks like the back of an iPhone, and I kind of like the swirly patterns kind of
Yeah.
going behind it and the colors there.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
And
It's just amazing what these things can do, like, Chat
mhm.
GTP and all these things I think it's probably better than Image Playground.
Unfortunately, yes, yeah.
Yeah, but that's a rabbit hole we're not even going to go down right now. But
Nope.
um, anyway, we'll bring in Mr. Dwight Broman. Hey, Dwight, how are you?
Good. Heck, guys, how you doing? Hi,
Not
everybody.
bad. Your background is not as psychedelic, but neither is
No,
mine, really.
no, the spirit is psychedelic back there, though.
And you're, still with a considerable amount of daylight now, so the
Hmm.
lighting is not as, uh, you know, vibrant with the purple and whatnot that it used to be, but that's okay. It still looks
Yeah, I
good.
think the lighting's a little bit better right now. Yeah, no, good to be here. Good to see you guys.
Yeah. So we'll just do a little bit of housekeeping before we get into our main topic here. I wanted to mention this on the last show, but I don't think that this was available at the time. But Reflex updated their Reflex Pro camera app to include support for an Apple Watch shutter trigger. So if you have an Apple Watch and you're using Reflex Pro camera, uh, you can install it on the watch, and then you just open it up, and it's just so simple. It's just a shutter button. That's all it is. Now, if you have a timer set on in the app on your iPhone, then the timer will count down before it takes a picture. But um, just very simple, just a shutter button, and uh, it's cool. It's something that people have been asking for, and it's very responsive too, very quick. So like I don't know if there's any lag in it. Um, it's early days for it. I think they said they're going to, put a couple more things into that Apple Watch functionality. So we'll see what they come up with. But I mean, these guys are great developers. Salvatore is amazing with what he can do. So look for good things from them coming up in the future. But the other thing
Yeah,
is,
Greg, I would say that that's going to be really nice because I'd like to set up with the Reflex app and the 240 millimeter lens on maybe a hummingbird feeder or something like that. But it
oh
would be
yeah,
nice at some point that they make a complication for it,
yeah, yeah, that would be. Um,
a
But yeah,
large
and
complication.
I often use a tripod when I use my 240 millimeter lens too. So, um, it's great to be able to just stand there and not have to touch the phone and have it shake or anything, and just hit the watch and Bob's your uncle, away you go. Um, I was going to mention on VoiceCast this voice message feature or service that we're using. Um, we can get messages from listeners and everything else. There's a link in the show notes, and we got a message. But I wasn't going to mention it, but because I can't find it on my phone, I was going to play it. So I will wait till the next show. It's nothing urgent as far as time goes. So I will wait till the next show before I play that. And it's kind of a funny one. So I'm just turning off the Bluetooth on my phone so it doesn't interfere with my headphones during the show here. So, um, anyway, anything you guys have for housekeeping before we get into the meat of the sandwich here?
You had texted something to us earlier, and you might have made a social media post about that, Greg. But I think we've kind of moved up a little bit in the rankings, haven't we, on the iPhone or the camera
Oh,
podcast?
yeah, that's a good one, but Dwight. So there was two lists of podcasts that we made the top 100, and one was the top 100 photography related podcasts. I think we're number 55 or something like that. And or no, it was I think that might have been the iPhone one. I don't know. I can't remember for sure, but I'll have to dig those up. And if I could find them, I'll put links in the show notes to these lists. But anyway, we made both lists, and we're 55 on the one list, and I think it was 23 on the other list. And so there was one about um, I think it was Apple related podcasts, and the other one was camera related podcasts. And so I thought that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, nice to be recognized or discovered like that. And um, Dave, you're probably looking for those links, aren't you?
Well, no, I was looking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Todd in chat mentioned that Leica came out with a app, and I was looking at the info, and it looks like that's been around for a little bit.
Yeah, I have that. I
Okay.
have that app, Leica Lux.
Yeah.
Um, it's very, I would say, limited in what it could do in the free version, and I'm not going to uh, I'm not going to subscribe to it. But like Norman Savagar, I think that's hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Over in the UK, he uses it a lot because he really likes the look that you get with this app. It very much resembles the look of like a camera, I guess. And he does a lot of street photography, so the
He
black
does
and
good
white
work.
stuff is really good.
Yeah,
Pardon?
he does great
Yeah,
work.
yeah, he does.
But isn't that
Uh,
it's like $80 a year or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
could
it's
be.
$6.99 a month, and
Hmm.
$69.99 for a year.
Okay.
Is there a lifetime purchase, Dave?
No.
No, there is not.
No. Okay. So yeah, it would be kind of cool. I mean, if you're a Leica fan and really want to go nuts with that, then it's worth subscribing to and supporting them for sure. But I just wouldn't use it enough myself. So, um, but yeah, that's definitely a good app, a nice app. Um, I find with Filmic First Light, I think you could get some things that are similar to those looks like that. Um, it's been a while since I've used it, but it's another good one. You can preset all the looks, even add a vignette to the image before you take the shot. So it's a pretty powerful program too. Um, there's so many of them. There's so many of them out there. But so the one we're going to talk about tonight is an editing app, and it's the little brother to Luminar Neo, and it's Luminar Mobile or mobile, depending on where you are in the world, how you say it. But it's it's pretty good. It's pretty good, and we're gonna go through some of the features here. And if you're watching the YouTube video live or after the fact, stick around to the end because Dwight's going to do a demo on how this app works and go through a quick edit for us. But it's it's missing a couple things, and hopefully they'll bring them in at some point. But at this point, okay, so it's a year old too. It's been out for a year, and they've been having this 1 year anniversary celebration, and I think they had a really good sale price for the lifetime license, which gave you obviously lifetime use of it. But I think there were some features, Dwight, that if they came along in the future that you'd have to be a subscriber to actually get them. Is that it? Or am I thinking of the desktop version like
I think
Neo?
you're thinking of the desktop.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. If you bought the lifetime, I'm pretty sure that as they update the app, you would get the the new features.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, like Dwight, I have a problem. I buy stuff. I spend money on these apps. I looked at it and I looked at it and I kind of, do I really need it? I don't know. But the more, I mean, I've in my Instagram and Facebook feed, I've been lambasted with Luminar ads for mobile and for Neo. And I guess it's obviously because I watched one or I clicked on one or whatever. So they're gonna just give you more, right? And so I bit the bullet and I got it while it was on sale. So, and I don't regret it. I mean, it's kind of fun. It's kind of cool, and you'll see that as we go forward here. So, now, Dave, you had the free trial for a couple of weeks. What did you think of it?
No, I thought it was good. Like I said, there's a couple things, like you mentioned, that are missing. That when there's ways around it, if you're comfortable with curves,
Hmm.
what's missing probably won't affect you. I'm not as comfortable with curves. I prefer like in either Photomator or Lightroom Mobile, where it will give you a color and there are sliders for each color that you can adjust individually. Which I know you can do that in curves, but it's especially when you only obviously have three curves versus like Photomator or Lightroom Mobile, which gives you a lot more colors that you can use for sliders. And I
Yeah,
just
like
find that a
you've got
lot
a
easier.
choice of generally 6 different colors, like, that you could pick
Exactly.
from,
Yeah.
whereas with the curves, you've got red, green, and blue, right? And you're
Right.
pretty limited.
Right. So it makes a it wasn't that it was a bad price, which I don't think it is a bad price. I think it's very reasonable. I just didn't want to put out that big. First of all, I it, I didn't want to do monthly because that can add up very quickly. I was thinking about doing the yearly because if you do the yearly, you do get a 1 week free trial, and it's not a limited trial. You get a full trial to try everything. And like I said, I think it's good, but I have to think if I'm going to buy something, you have to do something better than something I already have.
Yeah,
And I like the AI touches. I just didn't get the impressive results that I saw other people, including Dwight, just doing the little AI slider, like, boom. I never got that in my photos. Maybe it's the subjects I do, or who knows what else. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's good. I just didn't, for my particular use case, want to put out the money right now.
yeah, and that's fine. I mean, um, there's a lot of people that don't buy a lot of apps and
Yeah,
stuff, and that's okay. Um, but I mean, hey, look at with the like a Lux. I mean, I don't want to put it out for that because
yeah,
it does add up, like you said. I mean, all you got to do is go to your iCloud stuff on your phone and see the subscriptions that you may or may not be,
yeah,
have. I've heard of some people saying, oh, they went in and checked and they had stuff they weren't even aware of, and they were still paying them. Like, holy cow, it could get out of hand.
yeah.
But anyway, uh, Dwight, what about you? What are your first impressions of Luminar Mobile?
I think, well, first of all, just to kind of set the timeline for me, I've supported the Skylum team over years throughout their different products and stuff. So acquiring the desktop version for me was natural. When the mobile version came out, it was a subscription thing, and I looked at it. I wasn't going to get too excited about it. And then recently they came out with a lifetime option, and I went ahead and bought it just to support the team. It's a very small team that's working on it. Very very good guys, and I wanted to support them. And it, what I will say is it's fun to use. There are some severe limitations, I would say, at this point, but based on my conversation with the developers, I think that down the road they will make certain improvements. Like as Dave mentioned, they don't have an HSL slider, so you can't adjust the hue, saturation, and luminance of each color individually. You just have the standard curves and then the RGB colors. And I'm not sure you can get deep into the purples and the oranges using the curves. So I think that the curves are somewhat somewhat of a limitation there. Um, when we do our editing, let me also say that Luminar Neo Mobile, and I'm not sure about Neo Desktop, it doesn't work very well with JPEGs. Raw files, I think, work best in there, and I think possibly ProRAW, but Anthony Turnham had a good video about that, and he showed what happens when you loaded a JPEG in there, and there's a lot of artifact. But the raw files, they worked really well. There's no histogram. There's no clipping warnings. There's no masking. And as as Dave spoke about earlier, there's no HSL. Crop sizes are a little bit fun, but a little bit weird. But we can get into kind of some of that stuff as we go along here, I think. But I would say overall, my first impression is that it's actually fun to use.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
way, oh, sorry, Greg.
Hey, go ahead, Dave.
When you mentioned about JPEGs not seeming as good as RAW, that may make sense since I pretty much always shoot in really HEIF, but gets converted to JPEG when a program opens it. That's possibly why I didn't, like I said, when I saw you demo it and other people, I'm guessing they were working off of RAW files and seeing the big difference where me working off a JPEG, I noticed the difference, but it wasn't the wow factor.
Yeah, that could be. And Anthony, in the beginning of his video, had a JPEG file to start with, and there was artifacts everywhere when he started doing some of the adjustments. And then he brought the raw file in, and that was all. Those were all gone, and then it rendered nicely with the adjustments.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it will act with a pro raw file because I've been shooting a lot of raw lately too. Like we're talking bare raw here, and I'm gonna shoot a few pro raws and see how it handles them. I want to know if it's gonna have any of this artifact and just because of the stuff that's baked into a raw file. But with Lightroom Mobile, you can change the profile, get rid of that stuff and work with your image. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that behaves with a pro raw file. So okay, I am going to pull up some slides here that we're going to view as we go, so you'll be able to see them on your phone screen if you're listening to the audio. And we're gonna. It's basically like a almost like a walkthrough of an edit, like Dwight's going to do later, but it's going to show the what this app has for the settings and all this stuff. Now this is the iPad version that Dwight has it on his iPad as well. But all the settings and everything else that you see here are also available on the phone. So this but basically this is where you start, Dwight. So you want to kind of lead off on how you started this process here.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm scrolled down on the right a little bit, so it's not the top of the editing suite there. I'm kind of down in the curves here, but essentially, this is the raw file that I started with. So this is the bare raw file that I shot.
Okay, where am I here? There we go.
And so when you look at this thing, what are you looking at? You're like, well, how does that horizon? Is that on the bottom third? I don't like that towel there. This thing probably could use to be some cropping, a little bit of cleanup of the towel, and just make sure it's the composition's good on it before we go forward.
Right. Okay. So now,
so
this
here
was the next step in your process. Yeah.
Yeah, this was the cleanup and the crop. So you can see the towel's gone. I thought it did a pretty good job of cleaning up the towel and then, rotating the horizon appropriately to fit the lower third. So that worked out fine. The crop size isn't in incremental numbers like, 1 by 1. 3:4 ratio, 4:5. This was considered a Facebook or an Instagram post size, and I have a sneaky suspicion that this is a 4:5 crop,
Yeah, I
or
would say it looks
possibly
like it.
possibly a 3:4, but they don't denote what the ratio of the crop size is, which to me I would rather have.
And I think we should note too, Dwight, like we kind of when we were testing uh, your your edit sequence later on, we were doing a test on it, and you had this image in there, and you had the raw file in where it had the towel on the beach, and when you removed it with the removal tool, um, it's it's okay, but it's not, it's not the best there is for sure. And maybe that's something that will evolve in this program too, or in this app. But it was a little too obvious in my mind that it was basically cloning something very close to it.
Yeah,
Um,
if you want to keep the erase tool size to match just about the size of whatever you're trying to erase. Or
yeah,
you're right, Greg, it may pull from data around it and make it, look like you're taking surface area from around what you're trying to erase. And then
yeah,
you can
yeah,
see the spot. This one I used a very small reduced array size tool.
yeah, yeah. So now, when you're going through through the different steps that you can go through with Luminar Mobile, you can see on the right there at the top, there's a really great, there's a very large dial. So that's the Enhance AI. Um, but one thing that you'll find if you do try to develop or work with a JPEG, um, and probably a HIFE, I would imagine be the same thing. You won't see the next one down, which is where it says develop raw. It has brightness, highlights, shadows, whites and blacks. I don't believe that's present when you're
Ye-
developing something other than a raw.
Right. I don't believe if it's not recognized as a raw, I don't believe that develop raw
Yeah.
shows up. Yeah.
Yeah. So that also includes the next one, which is contrast, and then looks like color, temperature, and tint.
Yeah,
So
contrast is the squiggly line, which I don't like to use. I prefer to use curves, and then the top slider is your white balance, and then the
mhm,
bottom slider is your tint.
yeah,
The white balance does have the Kelvin readouts at the top, so that's nice.
yeah. So
Now, Greg, I
so
think.
yeah. Go ahead,
Sorry,
Dave.
Greg. What I would say about in JPEG, I remember you do have those available.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, but they're not. It doesn't say develop raw.
Oh, okay.
It just says
So
develop, right?
it just says develop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you still
Oh,
have
okay.
the options, including the contrast. Now on the iPhone, each one's kind of a separate area.
Hmm.
Yeah,
They're not kind
yeah.
of grouped together. But yeah,
Right.
you do have that option, but it won't work as the same per se, since RAW versus JPEG.
Well, okay, but I thought there was something that wasn't there. Maybe I'll look it up here while we're going through this, but I'm pretty sure there was something that wasn't there um, when it wasn't a raw file. I'm just going to look here now.
Yeah, in the desktop version, if you open up a non-raw file, you will just get a develop module as
Oh
opposed
yeah.
to a develop
Okay.
raw.
So
Mhm.
okay.
Or when you make changes to a develop raw, then it will save it to an edit, and then the next time you want to make, say, a local adjustments in the develop tab, it won't show raw.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I got we got more snow the other night. Last night, actually. We had all our snow was gone. Anybody that listens to the show knows how much snow I've had over the winter, and I was so glad to see it go. But I mean, this is just a quarter of an inch of snow, so it was no big deal. But it was just frustrating to see all the grass covered again. But anyway, this is a picture that was I think it was just a heath picture, and so it's showing it's showing all these adjustments, but it just doesn't say raw beside it. So um, it's 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 I guess limited in the quality you're going to get with it. Like, I mean, the same goes with any editor when you go JPEG versus RAW. Um, so yeah, it's missing the raw stuff, and because when you do like white balance, you have so much more control with a raw file than you do with because basically with a JPEG or a HEIF, you're just kind of just changing the color of it. Like you're not really playing with the color temperature. You're playing with just the color. Um, it's either going to warm it up or cool it down or whatever, or make it a little more warm. What's the word I'm looking for? Orangey or cool, like a more blue color. Whereas with white balance, you just have more control, I guess you could say. I guess that's all I'm blabbering on about here. Um, but yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, limitation on the white balance here is that it's visual. You don't get a color picker to where you might want to find a neutral spot
yeah,
on the photo to help set white balance for you.
right,
And that is a nice option to have too.
Yeah.
yeah. So okay, so anything else on the screen there that you can think of that might be worth mentioning
No, this
before
is
we?
enhance AI. This is pre adjusting highlights, whites, saturation, or shadows and blacks and
Yeah,
brightness.
so we're still in the raw file with just the towel removed off the beach, and then a little bit of
Yeah.
a crop and straightening.
No adjustments at this point.
Right. So then we get into where the magic happens. And this is with that big dial on the top, where and this is the first thing you see on the phone version too, is you see this big dial. It's at the bottom of the screen somewhere. And anytime that we've played with this, we thought, wow, okay, so you move it and you get to a point where you like what you see. And I've heard Dwight say this probably 3 or 4 times. Wow, I think we're done. It does a good job, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does a good job, and I think for the average person that's just looking, well, first of all, the average person's not going to be shooting in RAW, right? They're going to be 99.9% of iPhone users aren't going to be using RAW. But what I can say is that based on everything I've ever done in the past, I have had a few photos with just the enhanced AI adjustment be good enough for something that you're editing on the fly. I don't have my desktop with me, maybe somewhere where I'm at. You can make it look pretty darn good, with just that.
Yeah, and it does a really good job. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really surprising how well it does. I mean, I'm sure it will probably never blow out the highlights, and it'll never completely lose the detail in the shadows with that slider. It will probably make sure that everything stays within the limits. And there again is where we miss the histogram and it can't see that for ourselves. But I'm willing to bet that they've got it designed to do that way. It's like the brilliance slider in photos. And when you're editing a picture in photos, the brilliance slider is designed to never overblow the highlights. And I think it'll probably take the blacks down, maybe, crunch the blacks a little much, but there's still, you can get detailed back out of the blacks. Once you blow the highlights out, you'll never get them back. So
yeah, we should run a test on that, Greg. And I think that in order to do that, then it's only working with the certain level of the mid-tones. It's not working on the higher end of the highlights and the shadows. To stay.
like in those adjustments there for you got your brightness, and then you got whites, highlights, and shadows and blacks. It probably won't affect the blacks and whites, but it will play with everything else.
Yeah, I think once you start playing with those adjustments though is where you can get in trouble. Obviously, the brightness slider, and I'm sure you could blow your highlights out with that. I'm sure you can, get pure black with the black adjustment.
Yeah.
But we should maybe run a test on that and just take it to the extreme and bring it into another program, maybe with a histogram.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how that would work.
Now,
So
I did
then you
have
get
one-
into your,
Sorry, Greg.
your adjustments, like your
Mhm.
basic adjustments, like color, saturation, and whatnot. So,
Yeah. I think Dave was saying, Dave, what were you saying?
Well, just that for people who aren't familiar, when you were saying you're shooting in bare raw, so that the iPhone built-in camera, even shooting in raw, can't do that, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
iPhone camera pipeline has an algorithm that applies adjustments to your photos. What is it called? Deep Fusion, Greg. I think it it'll
Deep
combine
Fusion, Smart HDR. So you're talking about
It'll-
Apple ProRAW?
Apple JPEG 2, I think, still has the same pipeline.
Yeah. There's Deep
Right.
Fusion. There's Smart HDR. There's noise reduction.
Right. So
Sharp
for
image.
99.9% of the people, that's perfect because it's adjusting for the white balance, adjusting for highlights and shadows, and that picture is just good enough. But yeah, you're right, Dave. When I say raw, it's essentially Bayer raw. Bayer was a person, I believe.
Yeah.
And this is essentially in the beginning, it's essentially what the iPhone sensor saw through the lens with no processing.
Yeah.
Now,
Which makes you need to edit those.
yeah. Now, when you shoot in RAW with a third-party app, do you have to say I want bare RAW versus RAW? Is that
There's
optional?
there's a raw option, and then there's a pro raw option. So the raw option on most third-party apps will apply the deep fusion because I don't think they can actually pull that out. I think they can reduce it on some of the apps. Is that correct, Greg? I think they've got a way to minimize the Apple pipeline of adjustments.
like Fig camera.
Yeah.
It has some stuff in it where it can strip all that stuff away and just give you,
Right.
the basically a Bayer raw file in JPEG form.
Right.
It's kind of like halides. What do they call that? Where you can
Process Zero? Or is that somebody else?
Yes, process zero.
Okay.
Yes, where you have to work with a raw file in Halide's version. You have to work with the raw file, and then you can do the process zero and output it as a JPEG. And it'll look
you
like
can't
the raw file.
Right. You can't output it as a raw file once you make an adjustment to it. It's no longer
Right.
a raw file.
Yeah, but with Fig Camera, Christian, the developer, has found a way to get all that done, and the image that you've taken is a JPEG with all that stuff stripped away. Like, it's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in the iPhone camera app, when you see RAW, it's not a Bayer RAW. iPhone camera app will not do a Bayer RAW. It just shoots the Pro RAW. So
we're hoping
that's
for
something
that opportunity here at some point. Apple,
Pardon?
if you're listening.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I just wanted to clarify for people who, if you're not familiar with it,
yeah.
you may be shooting in the built-in camera app and thinking, "Oh, I'm doing RAW," and it's RAW-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Pro RAW. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Pro RAW
Pro Raw may be okay for this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Pro RAW will work in this. Like, Pro RAW was developed by Apple and Adobe. It was a joint venture. And when they marketed Pro RAW, it came out with the iPhone 12 Pro, not when the phone was released, but I think it was December or January, in an update. Pro RAW was introduced, and it was marketed to be like to give you a head start on the editing process. It basically looks like a HEIF or a JPEG, but it has abilities that the raw files have, where you can work with white balance and things like that. Whereas, with a non-raw file like a JPEG or a HEIF, you don't have as much, as much to work with, I guess. So, but I want to run some JPEGs through Luminar Mobile, and just to see how they fare. I want to see these artifacts and stuff that this guy. And we'll have to get a link to that, Dwight, and put it in the show notes. The video of that from that guy. And
Yeah, he does a great job of featuring this app, and I highly suggest everybody, if you're interested, to watch that. I mean, he really, really did a great job on his edit, and is really comfortable with having this as an editor when he's out on the road and not able to utilize his desktop or a laptop, or maybe he doesn't want to be paying for Photoshop or whatever.
yeah.
So,
And what's his name again?
Anthony Turnham.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll
we'll
send
have
you
to
the
look it
link.
up and-
He's got
Okay.
he's got great content. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen a couple of his videos.
Mhm.
I may even subscribe to the channel. I've got so many I subscribe to, but yeah. So we'll definitely put that in the show notes, and people can have a look at that. So yeah, so this is basic adjustments for basically color, contrast, maybe a bit of saturation or vibrance. It looks like you've given it a bit of vibrance and not much else.
Yeah,
And then
I took down the highlights. I think I brought the shadows up. The whites I kind of played with, and the blacks I kind of played with. Again, for me, when I'm using the white balance excuse me, the whites and the blacks,
mhm.
I'm usually looking at a histogram or clipping warnings to kind of know when I'm just backing off on both of those. So, they're not, we're not getting pure white or pure black in the photo.
Yeah.
So that's a guess, I think, for me, right now. I don't know if those clouds in the middle are blown. They don't look like it, but I just don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. And even with the blacks, like down in that one big rock near the bottom, a little to the left there, it's hard to tell. I mean, we're uh, looking at it on a screen here, but through StreamYard, but it's hard to tell if it's actually crushed the blacks to the
Mhm.
point where it's actually lost the shadow detail. But again, it's easier to get the details back out of the blacks or the shadows than it is the highlights. So.
Mhm. So for the
Um,
audience, if you're not aware, if you have pure black or pure white, that's essentially what's going to print. So anything that's pure black is just going to be pure black ink. So if you're printing a photograph, that doesn't look good.
Right. Yeah. And blown out whites are worse, way worse even. So, um, so further down on the screen there, on the right hand side, there's a structure dial, and that basically, I guess it just gives a more contrast in the edges. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, to me, that's where we're starting the sharpening process. You're pulling out just kind of a structure. It's going to look at the photo and try to determine, what needs to be sharpened or brought out in the image.
Hmm.
So for me, I like to use this stuff really sparingly. But I usually do any sharpening that I'm going to be doing towards the end of my edit, because if you're doing uh, sharpening, if you let me see, if you do it in the beginning and then you do your edits on top of that, you can start getting some halos and stuff like that around
Yeah.
some of the
Yeah.
colors.
Yep.
So you've got the structure AI, and then you've got further down below, you've got sharpen, where you can focus on the small, medium, and larger objects.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is kind of cool, really.
mhm.
It makes it pretty versatile.
Yeah, when I'm working in Photoshop, I'll usually bring it in the end. If there are details, I will bring it into Adobe Camera Raw add a little bit of texture, see how it looks, a little bit of clarity. I try to stay away from that dehaze filter as
Yeah.
much as I can.
Hmm.
But I think this structure AI may kind of act like a dehaze a little bit. I have to do a little bit more on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that Luminar Desktop is known for is their sky replacement, and I think that the tool that they brought into the mobile version, it looks pretty good.
Hmm.
Um, I'd have to probably play with the horizon a little bit. It looks like I'm just seeing a little bit of a line there. I don't know if we can close that up, using some of the adjustments in the upper right hand corner. But yeah, I thought it did a pretty good job, and you can see that the tone on the beach, and you can see there's some reflection in the water, so they take that into consideration as well when you replace the sky.
Yeah, because if we go back to this one, where before
Hmm.
the sky replacement, you look at the beach and the color tone of the beach and that, and then when you do the sky replacement, it warms up because the sky is very
Hmm.
warm, in color
Yeah,
temperature, and it's a really clever thing that they've put in there.
and if you look around the palm trees, they're doing a pretty good job with it. In the
Yeah,
early days, you'd see some haloing, and it looks pretty good on this.
yeah, yeah, and so there's different types of sky replacement too. Like there's even some with lightning and
Hmm.
there's just clouds. Um, gray sky with clouds, that type of thing. There's blue sky with clouds. There's probably a dozen or so different sky variations that you can put in,
I've
and
got about 800 skies, and you can load your own skies in here if you want.
yeah, yeah. Uh, so yeah, and the ones that you're seeing on the screen now, they're the sunset variant. Um,
Y- Yeah,
so
and that's native with the app. That came with the app. This is not
yeah,
one of my skies.
right. So yeah, so I mean, it's got some pretty good things. Now if you look at the top left hand corner, third icon in, you see these two arrows that they crisscross. That's a real cool thing because as soon as you load a picture in Luminar Mobile, you can tap that icon, and it'll just give you a random preset,
Hmm.
and you could either you can like it and leave it, or you can like it and work on it, or you can just change it. So we'll show you that in Dwight's demo later on here, um, but that's just one of the things that you may see on the screen, and you're wondering what is that. Um, so there's I think it's a pretty versatile app, and I do find
Hmm.
myself using it and starting with it before I maybe venture over to a different app, for a different look or a different type of edit. But uh, it's kind of cool. I mean, just that enhanced AI, that big dial that you get right off the bat. I can't get over how good that is.
Hmm.
It's like it's doing a whole pile of different adjustments all at once. But so Dave, while you did have the app, you did a couple of edits,
Mhm.
and this was one of them. It's a nice, lot of uh, brilliant color to it. And so, do you remember what you did
Yeah, this was
exactly?
actually a sky replacement
Okay, I
because
wondered.
because the sky was actually completely clear. So it was just a
Okay,
pale blue sky.
yeah,
And taking the picture, it looked honestly it was the sky was a little boring.
yeah,
When there's nothing in it. So I did that, and when I did that, I also made the ground a little warmer because originally it was more like a flat beige instead of like
hmm,
that warm with a yellow undertone there.
Did you do that with the golden hour slider?
I Yeah, I did play with that, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And
yeah,
then I took the same photo and converted it to black and white to get a completely different feel for it.
yeah. So that the black and white conversion, was it done in Luminar Mobile as
It,
well,
it
or
was, yeah.
okay? Yeah. So I mean, when you have a plain blue sky, as much as a blue sky is lovely to see, sometimes in a photo it just lacks character,
Yeah.
and it basically has no story to tell. But so when you change the sky into something, you know what? Some people will say, you can't change the sky. It makes a fake photo. Hey, if you're posting it somewhere and if you disclaim it, then no problem.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Or
Um,
if you're not saying, a lot of times you can tell when photos are adjusted.
yeah.
If I was doing something, and I don't see myself ever doing this, but as a eyewitness to something, I would never
Hmm.
touch something like that.
Right.
Or saying this is what I saw out there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, I think the argument can also be made that if you even touch a slider, it's not the original photo, right? I mean,
Well, this is true. This is true.
so I
Yeah.
usually try to say, hey, this is my photo edited in such and such and such and such.
Yeah. 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 Or just include a hashtag, right? Like,
Right.
hashtag Lightroom Mobile or whatever, right? Um, but yeah, I think changing the sky out was a good move for this shot, Dave, because
Hmm.
like I said, it gives it a lot more character, and I love the black and white version. It makes it more moody, like
is
it.
that, yeah.
Yeah, like
And as bright as it was, like I said, it was. Now this was, I want to say, taken. I'm trying to remember if this was a morning or an evening shot, but it was still harsh light because no clouds. That's why I
yeah,
thought the black and white would work better anyway, because like you said, giving that more dramatic lighting to it.
yeah, yeah,
And Dave, it did pretty well behind those trees.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's
hmm
like I said, in terms of the details, it can, like I said, get having the AI work on the masking and like saying this is the trees, it's the sky, and there's not a weird, like I said, a blooming or something weird going on around it.
Hmm.
yeah,
It did a really good job.
Yeah.
yeah. That's pretty cool. Um, so that's kind of a walkthrough through Luminar Mobile, and it's it's pretty good. Like the developers, like they've been like Skylum. I've had, I think I had the original Luminar
Hmm.
program on my Mac back in the day, and when I went to when I went to get Neo, I signed into my Skylum account, and I seen all these different things that I can re-download.
Hmm.
Like there was Luminar. I think then there was a Luminar, the second version, and there's one about like noise removal and all this stuff. So I maybe I might have to go and download some of them, but I gotta free up some room on my Mac. These stupid small hard drives. But yeah, and I grabbed Neo when it was 75% off. So I mean that was a bonus. Plus I got all these other things with it. But
Yeah.
no, but Luminar Mobile it's a pretty good editor, and I definitely think it's worth having a look at because
Hmm.
you know for the lifetime license that I bought, it was less than a 1 year subscription to Lightroom Mobile. So it was a pretty good deal, and I let my Lightroom Mobile subscription go. Right, I'm not subscribed to it anymore, so I'm missing the masking, and there was something else that I can't do with it, uh, but I'm getting along. So far, I'm getting along without it, and uh, pretty good. So, any final thoughts on this before we go to our recent photos?
No, I think you can pick up on some of those other items that you are missing from your Lightroom subscription on the desktop version of Luminar Neo. You've got the luminosity masking now. You've got color masking now. It does a pretty good job with that.
Hmm.
My only argument there is I don't know what specific tonal range I'm in, with the lights and the darks. I'm kind of
Yeah,
stuck on that uh, Ansel Adams scale, but still, I think you can make assumptions with the curves, right? If you're moving the curve from the center, you're working with the midtones, so you can kind of experiment with that.
well, does the curve not show you the histogram, Dwight, in Luminar
Hi-
Mobile?
Histogram is separate from that, but I can't
No, but
remember.
when you're in the curves adjustment,
No, I don't believe so.
now I got to look it up. Let's see. I'm going to go to curves. Oh, no, it does not.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so,
depressing. That is so depressing. Thought we
But
maybe
in the
might have
desktop
got something.
version, the histogram would be on top if you have it enabled. So you'd have your
Yeah.
curve down below, and then you can watch your histogram on the top while you're making your adjustments.
Yeah. Now, something that we didn't mention yet, and there's not much we can say about it until you do your demo. Or spoiler alert, until we look at one of my pictures in our recent photos, is the film sims.
Mhm.
There's some really cool film simulations built into Luminar Mobile, and some of them have pretty decent effects. So, we'll look at that more in Dwight's demo. But for now, we're going to go to our recent photos, and uh, you've been looking at these pictures on your phone screen, probably if you've been following along, and these are no different. So look at your screen, and we're going to start with your first one, Dwight.
Yeah,
And it
this
looks
is
like a
this is a
boathouse or something.
boathouse. Yeah, this is a
Yeah.
boathouse in Dana Point. I was catching some of the morning sun rising over. There's a yacht club right there, and it was just peeking over the top of that. And what caught my eye was the canoes on the other side. I thought brought some nice color and nice reflection, underneath it.
The
So I
placement of
worked.
the reflection is cool, right?
Yeah, and they were really dull in the raw photo, so I isolated those tonal ranges and brought them out a little bit with a HSL adjustment in Photoshop, to try to bring it out to kind of where I saw I felt like what I saw when I was standing there. Otherwise, those colors would have been really washed out. But I'm a sucker for reflections, and I did dodge and burn a little bit on the lower left rocks here to provide a little more contrast, I think, between the whites and blacks there. And let me see what else. Yeah, that red on the boathouse was pretty washed out. I think I had to bring that color out a little bit.
Mhm.
And there's a few elements in the background that were reflecting the sun that were blown out white that the remove tool did a nice job on. You can see it there. If you see kind of way in the back, in the middle, you see that little triangle right there, that really skinny triangle that's kind of bright. That was
Oh yeah,
really
yeah.
bright. So I had to isolate that tone, and then I brought it down, I think with a curves adjustment, just to take some of the bite out of that. But yeah, I mean, this is something I've taken a photo of a few times, and this time I just thought it worked. I haven't found one that has worked yet.
Hmm.
Yeah, Dwight, I didn't even think about for a blown out area using, using basically the correction tool on it.
Yeah, so in Photoshop, what I did was I went into the different tonal ranges. So, lights 1, lights 2, lights 3, and in one of those tonal ranges, that triangle stuck out and nothing else did. Right? So I output that to a curves adjustment, and then I can modify the curve to soften that white.
And for those who don't know Photoshop, like me, I don't really know it that well. Um, you got to see Dwight do an edit in Photoshop. It's crazy what all the stuff he's got all these palettes in his layout and all this stuff. Um, in fact, we're going to do a video where Dwight's going to do an edit, and it's just going to be for the YouTube channel. But that you'll get to see what he means by all this stuff, all these different tools that are at his disposal in Photoshop. It's really cool, and like I say, he knows a lot more about it than I do for sure. But anyway, I didn't want to barge in on your discussion there with Dave there. So
Yeah, no, I made a point a year and a half ago to dedicate a lot of time into learning Photoshop, and I may be a quarter of the way there. Yeah, there's so much to learn.
wow, just a quarter of the way. Interesting.
There's so much you can do in that program. Yeah.
Yeah. Dave, did you get the new Photoshop for iPhone?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So is it this is kind of going on a tangent here, but I think it's relevant. Now is it um how how would it compare to like okay, is it good? It's got a lot of good stuff in it,
For the little bit I played around with it, it seems to have a good amount of stuff in it. Luckily, there are video tutorials they have there. I haven't had a chance to go through it yet.
right?
But for me, it seems like that's more on the creative side than just the straight. I want to adjust what this photo looks like.
Right. Okay.
That's more of a Lightroom thing versus because it talks
Yeah.
about things like um, layer, as it says, layer to new heights. So it
Right.
talks about
Okay.
the layers and adding something new, replacing backgrounds, doing selections, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I just wondered how close it would be to. I mean, it's never going to be as close as the desktop version, but I
Right.
just wondered if there was um, any way that somebody could play around with that to get a taste of what Dwight's doing with his images here.
Yeah, I have, and it's getting closer to the desktop version. I mean, you can work in non-destructive layers on that and
Yeah.
essentially do pretty much the same thing I'm doing on from what I know on my
Oh,
desktop.
really? Wow.
Yeah, the masking and all of that stuff is really good. Object selection. If you're working in Lightroom and you want to, embed some text or something behind a subject, you're
Yeah.
going to want to be working in layers, right? And then
Hmm.
isolating the subject, putting the text behind them, that kind of stuff. But you can't do that in Lightroom as well. So,
Yeah.
um,
Okay.
I think when I pinged you on that one, um, I wasn't quite sure, but there's been a recent update to where there's some really neat stuff people are doing on that mobile one. I need to investigate it
Yeah.
more.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to look at it. I don't think I've downloaded it. I'll maybe do that and see what it's like. But well, as far as this image goes, I do like what you've done with the colors. I like that you brought out the canoes and whatnot. And now that I know that they were a little more subdued, because they almost become the subject of the image, as hidden as they are. But with the reflection, I think that they kind of, it's a boathouse. It's on the water. It's bound to be there's subject matter is bound to be something like a boat of some sort. Um, and to me, my eyes keep going to them, and not so much to the boathouse itself. So that's kind of strange in my mind, but because I think the boathouse is more, um, intended to be the subject of the photo, but uh, lovely warm colors. Definitely looks like I'm going to say probably sunset as opposed to sunrise, and
Yeah, it's
and I,
actually
I
sunrise,
is
and
it
yeah, and I steered your attention to the canoes on purpose. I didn't want the subject to be the boathouse, and so I kept it really kind of toned down. I think that's why your eye keeps going down there.
I think you're right. Yeah. Okay. So I was going to call this Dwight's Boathouse for the list of chapter listings, but I'm
Yeah,
going to have to call it Dwight's Canoes.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Okay. So next we have. Wait a minute. I got to get back to my window. There. We have one from Dave.
Yep. So this is one that I took along North Park, up at North Park. And it's going to shock everyone before a race. Um, and I love the reflection. And it was Ruth's idea to see if I could make the top black and white. So I went into Photomator and I used I tried using their built-in layer selection tools, and none of them quite got it. But I used a linear one.
Mm-hmm.
So because I figured, the the water line's pretty flat. So above it, I just took all the color out, and below it, I pushed up the green a little bit more than there really was green there, and got the blue, the sky there, and did a little work in the sky itself to bring a little bit more contrast. You can actually see some of the clouds in it instead of just being a flat white sky.
Yeah.
So, and just working on it that way.
I like that, Dave. That's artistic. And what I like about it, I'm a sucker for reflection. I like the reflection.
Oh yeah.
What's nice is how you made the top part black and white, but you left some oranges and reds on the ground, so it's not 100%
Right.
black and white, but everything above the ground
Yeah.
is.
I was trying to make it that way,
Yeah,
but
no, that's
because
cool.
of the way that was more of a happy accident than of the way the filter was.
Did you use a linear gradient? Is that what you were saying? To
Yes.
isolate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I think it's-
Photomator does a pretty good job with layers also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's cool that, like Dwight said, you still have a little bit of color before you reach the water line.
Right.
So it's kind of like a transition, going from the black and white to the color, and basically the middle of the transition is right at the water line. So if it was a happy accident, well, it really
It worked out good. Yeah.
played out really well. So, but yeah, no, I like the reflection. I also I'm a sucker for reflections too, and uh, it it kind of has two different moods in the same image. It has a dull, drab, uh, blase kind of mood on the top half, but then the reflected side, it's all, bright and colorful, and
Mhm.
you know, it's I don't know what to call this one.
We're
I wanna
partying
say
down here.
yeah, business at the top, party at the bottom. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
And
but
because the reflection, because the lake was so calm,
yeah,
if I just took the image and I have it on my phone, just kind of flipped it upside down, and it still works that way.
yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's definitely interesting, and like Dwight said, it's artistic, and I'm gonna have to put some serious thought to what to call this thing, because I want to try to keep the title short for the podcast player, but like for the chapters and that. But yeah, this one's gonna take some thinking. So next we go to one of mine. It's so with all the snow we had, the waterfalls in the area are running like crazy. And rather than show the whole waterfall, I elected to just hone in on this one part that I got with the 240 millimeter lens from Reflex. And also, rather than do any kind of slow shutter effect, I decided to just take a shot and just see what the water looked like if I froze it, because the way it was coming down in that rock on the middle, it was just kind of, you know, sliding over it. And so I took a few different ones, and I like this one the best. Um, and this is a Luminar Mobile edit. First I did the enhanced AI slider, got it to where I thought, yeah, this is pretty cool. But then I also did a few adjustments with highlights, shadows, whites, blacks, all that stuff to give it a bit of contrast, and I think I maybe saturated it just a very little bit, because had I gone too far with that, then the water, like, it's got some yellowish green to it, and it would have been too much. So, and then I think I added a little bit of sharpening with the three different sharpening tools in Luminar Mobile, like the small, medium, and large, and then finished it off with a very slight vignette, and that's about all I did with it.
Yeah, I really like how the, the fact that the water in the center is just that pure white,
Yeah.
while the rest of it has that yellow. So it really acts to emphasize that part. Really sets it apart, different from the rest of the water. But like you said, yeah, I agree. Any more color, it would just. I don't want to say look off, but you're not used to seeing yellow water.
Yeah.
Unless there's a few
Yeah,
bears just upstream taking care of
yeah,
business, then you would see yellow water. But
yeah. Greg, out of curiosity, what's that? What are those colors coming from? Is it mossy there?
I was trying to think of that, and I know there is a lot of moss on the rocks, so it very well could be that.
But you
Um,
see some of the color in the spray down here on the bottom. That I don't know if that's spray or if that's actually water shooting out. I see some of that green tone in that too. So
yeah,
maybe there is that color in the water.
but there's at the top of the falls where it just starts to come over. That color is in there too, right? So but I
Mhm.
think I know there's a lot of moss on the rocks in there because in the summertime when there's you know very little flow going over, you can see it, right? I've
Yeah.
got many pictures of it. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just the moss. Um, it was an overcast day, so it's not like the sun was uh, bringing that out of it. But yeah, that's all I could think of is that it must be the moss underneath that's
Hmm.
causing it to turn that color. So yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
it was just pounding the water over, like just chucking it down.
mm,
And I've got some video of it and slow-mo video and stuff like that, so I'll probably put something together and put it on the Facebook group, maybe like a little 30-second video or something of it all. But, yeah, it was pretty cool. So, Dwight, here's your second one.
Yeah. So this is a tunnel that goes out to El Morro Beach, and as we were walking through it, I just said, "Hey, Diane, just cruise up there a little bit." I always try to find lighting that's cool. So I kind of liked just how the light was coming
mm,
in the tunnel, and then she's backlit, right? So um, yeah, I did it in color. I thought it looked pretty nice, but I went for the contrast in the black and white, and I think the I like the leading line from the bottom right, kind of bringing you up into it. Um, Nothing too complicated here, but I think this was decent timing.
yeah, and the other thing I like is um, the reflection in the water, almost completing the circle on the left,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
where it reflects the arc of the structure down below.
Hmm.
So you almost get a feeling like a James Bond opening. You're looking through. You're
Yeah.
looking through someone through a circle.
Or
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
shoreline drops off into an abyss where the pipe continues.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it gives it almost like a three-dimensional effect.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Um, but I also like the fact that you've asked her to walk up there for a sense of scale.
Hmm.
Had she not been there, it would be really hard to tell other than maybe gauging by the footprints in the sand, but it'd be hard to tell just how big that tunnel is. Um,
Yeah.
but but I do like the the like the leading line that starts in the bottom right and it goes up and curves to the left. And you can see the length of the tunnel and then it narrows down right about maybe 2 o'clock if you're looking at a
Hmm.
clock, and then it starts to widen out and go up to the top, but at the same time wraps right down and around the bottom again. It's just um, a really cool compositional effect, and then like Dave says, it carries on down into the reflection of the water, which kind of finishes it off, and yeah, it's just a really cool image.
Yeah, and that's not
And
pure black on the upper right. That is,
Yeah.
there's some light in there. But I'm trying to get a little more comfortable using, negative space because I think there's room to breathe in negative space. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was happy to be able to have that in this one.
Yeah. And Diane's a good sport for doing that too.
Oh yeah, she doesn't mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's cool.
She did that with a stress fracture in her left toe that she didn't know she had until today, and has to wear a boot for
Ooh.
6 weeks.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yep,
And you're
that's
making
no
her
fun.
walk out there to get a picture.
I had no idea.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
How'd she do it?
I think she's got some arthritis somewhere.
Hmm.
Possible bunion that
Mm.
can contribute to a stress fracture.
Oh, wow. Well, you don't know this, Dwight, but when we were on this afternoon, she walked by, you had your door open, and she walked by, like, was doing something in the hallway or whatever, and it didn't look like she was limping.
No, she said it
So-
actually felt pretty good today. So she was
Oh,
kind of
that's
bummed
good.
that she just had the doctor appointment about an hour ago, and she texted me,
Mm.
and so she's kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
bummed. Those boots aren't fun.
No,
Yeah, really.
no, I had
Yeah.
one. I had one a few years ago when I broke my ankle, and
Oh,
it was a giant pain.
yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
like, oh, you mean I have to sleep with this on too? Oh, goody.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, Dale Lotherington over there in Australia, he has, since I've known him, he's had his, and I don't know if it's the same foot or not, but he's had a broken foot 2 or 3 different times.
Mm.
And here's the funny part. He's a drummer.
Mm.
He was still playing the drums with his broken foot. He had one of them big boots on. But I remember seeing a video he put on, I think it was a reel on Instagram, where he was, pounding away on the drums, and you could see his leg going up and down. He was using the kick.
He looks like a
So-
drummer. I don't know if he was
Yeah.
able to do the heel toe kick method, but
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, no, that's a good one.
Thank
So Dave, here's your next one. I
Okay.
thought this was really interesting.
Now, just play a little game here. What do you think the original picture was?
I'm gonna say water of some sort. But
I
knowing
would agree.
your
It's either that or
clever-
glass.
Yeah, knowing your cleverness, Dave, it's probably nothing like that at all. So I don't know for sure.
It's actually glass and water.
Hmm.
So
Oh,
we
so we're
we
both
were
right.
yeah. So it was during day. We just left the restaurant, got to the car, and rain started to come down, and then we had a little bit of hail come down,
Oh,
and it was like you heard the ding 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 on the car, and first thing Ruth thinks of is, I hope our car doesn't get all dinged up. I said,
Yeah.
it sounds small. They were like a little smaller than pea size hail. And it didn't last that long. But it was a heavy rain with the hail coming down. So I did a video and I took a picture. And when I took the picture, there was some look to it. It had a nice the texture was there. The contouring because of the sheets of water coming down. And you still had a little bit of color from, across the street. So I took it in. I'm trying to remember what I used. I definitely used the built-in Photos app to kind of push out the color, really push up the color that was there, and make it a little shinier, for lack of a better term, to give it almost like to me it almost has an acrylic look to it,
yeah.
like an
yeah.
acrylic painting. And I just like the way it turned out with the different colors kind of merging in together. And like I said, it has that look of water, but not like a lake type of
Yeah.
water.
So I see a fish.
Me too.
Like
Upper
on the
left-hand corner?
left hand, not quite in the upper left hand corner, but you see that eye?
Yep.
There's the eye right there. You're circling it. And look
Yeah.
right below it. There's lips. See the
Yep.
lips?
Nope, I can see it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that
And
right
then
off the bat.
even go down further, you can see gills kind of going out of frame. That's really, yeah, I just noticed that.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
Dave, what can I
here's a
say?
crab.
That's more of your creative side there. What'd you say?
This here, right to top center, that light color there, looks like a crab.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a claw.
It's amazing what little, like the camera either picks up or it gets whatever little bit of color that could be there that you don't notice, but you put into editing and just kind of drive it to 11 and overemphasize it. And it's
Mhm.
amazing what you can come up with just by doing that.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah. That's more fun art.
And it's an abstract, I guess, like
Yeah.
Yeah,
it just goes to show you that sometimes you just don't think you got a photo anywhere, and you just take a picture out of your windshield and look what you come up with, a masterpiece. A fish chasing a crab through uh, colorful water.
yeah,
And I really like the teal color too. Like that,
Yeah.
that's really cool. And so across the street, and I also see here a dog,
yeah.
just
Barking,
right
barking at
around
the
the
fish,
center. Yeah. So you
or
got
an
a fish.
alligator.
Yeah, it could be. So you've got a fish staring at the crab, and the crab's taunting the dog. The dog doesn't realize it, and the dog's barking at the fish.
Yep.
Dave, you're a genius.
And we didn't. None of us took mushrooms before we did this. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
No
right.
microdosing.
Yeah.
No microdosing
Yeah.
here.
yeah.
Yeah, and Todd in the chat says one of those happy ass accidents. Nice
Yep.
edit, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's cool. Makes mine look boring.
Oh.
This is at a restaurant that we like to go to once in a while. It's called Montana's, and we were in a like a bench or whatever, like a I don't know what you call it, not a table, but a booth. That's it. And this was just across the restaurant, and I had my trusty 240 in my pocket, as I sometimes do. And so while we made our order, and while we're waiting for the food to come, I thought, you know what, that looks kind of neat. I took a picture of it. And in real life, it's a lot more vibrant, with the coloring and that. But this is a Luminar Neo edit, and I used one of the film simulations, and it's called Wooden. And I thought, well, I'll see what that looks like, because there's a lot of wood in the frame, and this is what the effect of it was, and I really like the way it turned out. Like it's kind of monochromatic in a way, but I think it just works. It really works well for what was in here. And Luminar Mobile has a really good straightening part to it. Like in the crop section, there's 3 dots in the middle at the bottom of the screen, and you tap that, and you can go auto straighten or auto alignment, and it'll find a straight edge. If it's a vertical, it'll put it dead straight, and that's what it did for this. So it did have to shift it a wee bit. So I was glad to have that feature available. And but excuse me, otherwise all I did was, again, with the enhance, I just dialed it up to a point where I liked it, and I put the film simulation on it, gave it a very slight vignette, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, I like the like I said, the denatured look of the photo. The fact it isn't as vibrant, and also it makes me want to have barbecue
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
with the pig out there, and where it says outhouse.
Yeah. Yeah, the washrooms were that way.
Yeah, that's now that you mentioned you used the 240, that makes sense because of the that was your focal point, I think, right? The pig outside and the outhouse, and then
Yeah.
that column, then everything in the background on the left there is blurry, and then the foreground is blurry. And I like the 3 lights. Curious as to whether they're blown out or not. But I like that kind of triangular setup, kind of walks you through it. And I like that preset on there. We'll take a look at that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a cool preset. One of, I don't know how many's on there, like a couple of dozen maybe. I'm not sure how many are on there, but I was kind of going through them at the different ones that see what it looked like, and then when I saw it wooden, I thought, oh, what's that one like? And then bang, that was it. I knew I was done. So
Yeah, cool.
yeah, so I guess that's a look at our recent photos. So Luminar Neo or Luminar Mobile. I think it's a pretty cool app. Um, there is also, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a Luminar Share app in the App Store that
Mhm.
you can, if you have Luminar Neo on the desktop, you can use this app to take an app from your phone and just put it right into the Luminar Neo app. It
Mhm.
just opens it up right then and there, and vice
Yep.
versa. You can send it from your desktop to Luminar Mobile. I haven't
Does it
played around
preserve
with
the
it much.
format, Greg? Do you know?
Pardon me?
Does it preserve the format?
I think so.
Okay.
You mean like if it's a RAW, it stays a RAW?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so. I think it's kind of like just like an AirDrop type of
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
because it says you have to be on the same Wi-Fi network for it to work. So, but I mean that's how AirDrop works. Is the Bluetooth makes the connection, and Wi-Fi is used to send the data back and forth. So,
Right.
um, but yeah. So, uh, yeah. So, any final thoughts on Luminar Mobile before
No, I
we?
think we can do the edit and dig into it a little bit. We can make it, use you guys' input with me and see what we can come up with.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for the audio listeners, thanks for playing along. If you want to see what we're going to get into here in a minute, go to the YouTube channel. There's a link in the show notes for the channel, and look for the episode 142, Luminar Mobile, and you'll be able to see what we're doing. It'll be about an hour and 20 minutes probably or so into the video, and you'll be able to walk through this edit with us. Vicariously with Dwight here. So, um, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Sounds
Have,
good.
have a great one,
Uh,
everyone.
all right, I'm going
Okay,
to go ahead and
so
present.
yep. For anybody that's in the chat still, you know, if in the comments, go ahead and give Dwight some suggestions as to what he can do. So the way we got this set up, this is what we were working on this afternoon. Uh, so Dwight is using his Mac screen, and he's got the Photos app open on the left with the original RAW file, and then right in the middle of the screen, right beside it, is his phone through iPhone mirroring, and this is Luminar Mobile, and I know it doesn't look, it's hard to see because it's kind of small, but um, maybe Dwight, if you can go to iPhone mirroring up at the top in the menu bar over there and go over to the left, way over to the left above your original picture,
Yep.
and where it says, I think it's maybe under window. Yeah,
Oh,
go
larger.
larger.
Here we go.
Yeah,
Oh,
there. So that makes it a little bigger. You might want to just
that's as
move it
big
up
as it
now, but
gets. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
That'll
that's a
work.
little better for viewing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we wanted to have the raw image, I think, as a reference image to the left, so you guys can kind of see what I'm working on. I think from a larger scale, and in the Luminar Neo app, I've got the raw file loaded as well. And Greg made mention of this. One of the first things you can do is you can just go through some random presets by clicking these double arrows right here. It makes a cool little sound. You can see it used enhance uh, AI here, right? I mean, for a lot of people, this is done, right?
Yeah, it's
Let's do it
crazy.
again. That's a little flatter. That's got a light leak. That's got a little more greens in it. That's really contrasty, high saturation. Blue, blue tints there. I haven't done any cropping or anything like that. We'll go ahead and do that. But I just wanted to kind of go through some of these random presets. And then if you make any adjustments beyond the random presets, you can always save whatever you've done as your own preset. So anything you can do, you can save as your own preset. So I'm going to go back to the beginning and work specifically with the raw file. So really the first thing I want to do is crop this thing. And I think, as I mentioned before, these are my crop options here. So it doesn't have the ratios other than the 1-to-1 square. You've got Facebook cover. Let me see. Nope, it doesn't. So I'm just going to do a 1-to-1 square, and then I'm gonna rotate it a little bit with this slider down here, just to try to make it a little bit better. It's bendy a little bit because of my lens, I think, but I think
Dwight, just hit those 3 dots right below that, just to show everybody that there's your options for like horizon alignment and
Let's see
stuff
what
like
it
that
does.
too.
Yeah, it does an okay job, but it's got that steeples
I
kind of
think
off.
it probably looked at that rail
The
from
light
the
standard, maybe.
light from the train crossing, and I think
Yeah.
that kind of threw it off a bit.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up and get that train track in the lower right, just to utilize that that leading line. And I'm gonna go ahead and accept that. And then I'm gonna go. I want to clean this tree up really, because it's just, for me, it's just a distraction here. So I'm gonna use the remove tool. You can see it might take a few times here. So let's give it another shot. Let's see.
Try taking a bigger swipe at it. Yeah. Oh, that just made it worse.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed when I had it and I was using the cleanup tool. I had issues with it not doing exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
And honestly, the cleanup inside of photos, lots of time work better.
Mm-hmm.
Or touch retouch.
Yeah, so this tool can be this tool can be improved for sure, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure it will be.
Yeah. I got rid of that cloud a little bit. So, all right. So let's not spend all night on this one, but you can see what I'm kind of trying to do here.
Yeah.
Let me just try a bigger one. Right in there. See if it takes from the surrounding area. One more.
Okay.
Okay.
Honestly,
We're just gonna,
I would say just leave it and do.
Yeah, we're gonna leave it there.
Use another thing for cleanup afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got our cropping done. We've got our composition done. And then you just kind of work your way through these sliders down here. So the crop tool's down at the bottom, erase tool, and then these are the adjustments, and then sky replacement and stuff like that. So we'll play with all that stuff. So I'm on the AI selection here. So I'm just going to bring the enhance AI up, and Greg made reference to it. If I crank it all the way, I mean, that looks pretty good.
I find that spot right about there where you're at on the dial seems to be ideal for a lot of things.
Yeah. So we'll go with enhance 75, and then here's the develop raw. So it recognizes that a raw file. So we bring the highlights down a little bit. The whites, I play with those. Here's where I'm wondering, if I'm blowing them out, but I'm going to keep those, maybe right about there. Shadows, lift the shadows. Blacks, you can kind of play with the black. So I'll get a little contrast in there, maybe right about there. And then you've got the brightness slider. We know we're clipping there. You gotta be. So I'm just going to leave that alone. I'm happy with the tonal value, I think, of that. I'm going to go to the next one, which is contrast, which I don't use. I usually get my contrast from Curves, but you can see you can really kind of boost the contrast here or make it a softer image. Here's the color balance and tint. It would be nice to have a picker where I can find a neutral color, like maybe right down in here to help me set my white balance. But I want it just maybe just a tad warmer, so I can't play around with it too much here. So I'm just going to bring it up a little bit. I'm going to leave the tint alone, I think, on this one. Since it's midday, there's not really much going on with the sun going up or down. Saturation is interesting. This is a lot like the new iPhone profiles that they have for the 16. And you can see it kind of works by, how you move it around. So you come over here, you're in the saturation area. You come over here, you're more in the, I think in the vibrance, or no, vibrance is up and down.
Yeah.
Saturation is left and right.
Left
So
and right.
yeah, so I just double clicked it to reset it. I don't use saturation a lot, so I usually bring the vibrance up just a little bit and then the saturation up just a little bit. So I think it doesn't need much, right? I don't want to overcook it. So I'll just do that adjustment there. It would be nice to have a before and after, to kind of,
Well, if you
check
tap
your
and
progress.
hold, press and hold on the picture.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's where we started, and that's
Yeah.
where we are now. Okay, then there's another AI section here, which I don't really like to use towards the end because it's really, for me, just kind of a sharpening tool. And, we've got some rocks down here. You can see them on the left. It'd be nice to bring those out a little bit, but I'm going to go over to the landscape, and this is the golden hour. If I crank that, it really brings, a lot of that kind of sunset-y look to it. So I'm going to bring that up just a little bit because there is a little bit more sun there. And then this one is foliage enhancer. So, if it recognizes what's foliage, right? If I really crank that up, it's going to, really make those bushes stand out. So I think the bushes have got enough going on.
Yeah.
The way they are. I don't want the eye really to be drawn towards those. As a matter of fact, if I had an HSL slider, I might even take some of that color down a little bit. I might have to do that on the saturation adjustment. And then curves. I'm just kind of a standard S curve guy where I like to bring my get my contrast, kind of right in here. So I'm working with the more of the shadow midtones, and then the highlights here. And then details. Okay, so if I'm going to start sharpening, I'm going to go back to the structure AI. Where was that? That was here, I think.
Yeah.
Structure AI. So if I really crank this, and it's hard to see, it's just really bringing out a lot of detail. I don't really want that. I'll just give it a little bit just for giggles to kind of bring some of these rocks out down here. And then I'll go off to the, where is that? Details. So now you can work within the small, medium, and large details. And I've always kind of, if I'm doing this, I usually start with the large. So if I really crank those large details, you can see it's going to pull. I know this is hard to see, but it's going to pick up the bricks and, some of these bigger things here. I
And then
don't
there's the
feel like it.
intensity slider in the middle, right?
Yeah, I don't feel like, yeah, that's sharpened. So that's even on top of that. So
Yeah.
the small details,
And honestly, I think this particular adjustment, the UI could do some work on.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it because it's just not intuitive what you're supposed to do to it.
yeah,
They could easily have 3 different knobs, if you will, and do something with the middle slider
Right.
and have it could be, instead of having two on the left and one on the right.
Yep.
And it's a weird mechanism there.
Yeah. And then sometimes I like to, where's the relight? Okay, there's the vignette. So sometimes I like to close off the top and the bottom of my edits just to kind of keep the focus on the subject for me, which is, kind of right in here, like right in the middle. So you can adjust brightness far. Like this. I don't think it needs it, but you can adjust brightness near as well. And then you can use this wheel to kind of adjust. Let me see. How far that shadow goes. See that? How much you want to close it off, and then you can just kind of blend it in
It's
that
almost
way.
like using a linear gradient.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of an AI thing there too. So, I think, I don't want to do really too much more to this thing, but let's look at the sky replacement real quick. Let's see how it does it on this. So here's where I can add my own skies here.
Mhm.
I think maybe, let's see. Maybe something like this would look good. If I just clicked it, I think
It's
that's a
so
little
fast.
overcooked. Yeah. Okay, sun's coming from the wrong direction there. Let's just try this one. I don't think that works. And then you can adjust it. I think there's a global something or other here. Haven't quite figured these things out yet. Fixed details, so that's probably around the structures, close gaps, and some type of global adjustment there. Let's see. Uh-oh. Let's see. How do I get back? There we go.
There
I
you
just
go.
had to.
Right.
I just had to go down. Not too excited about any of those. I mean, if you wanted to go, let's just do a simple.
Let's say you don't want to port the Aurora in the background.
Yeah.
Let's just go with that one for the heck of it. And then I think Greg, you talked about. Am I going to get trouble if I hit this?
Nope.
Okay.
No,
Uh-oh.
that just backs out.
Oh shoot.
That's okay. Let's go find it again. Let's see. Where is that?
I think you just passed it.
Yeah, right here. Oh, and that's another thing. So make a copy of your work, because whatever you do in this, it saves it to your camera roll, but you can always revert it to the original.
Yeah.
That is something else I was not a big fan of, is that you can export it once you're in here using the the export menu on the right,
Mhm.
but the minute you hit that back one, it updates your original, and it doesn't give you an option of not updating.
Right.
Yeah.
I want the option, if I hit that back arrow, said something like update original or remove all edits,
Yeah.
something like that.
Right. And then Greg made mention of the filters that they have here, and you can pick them and then play with the opacity of them. That's pretty blue. That's got more of a yellow. And I apologize for my cat. Wants a little bit of love here. Let's see. Mexico. That looks a little more green. That's kind of contrasty. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
It kind of pulls out some of the saturation. I kind of like that one. but and they give you a few. I mean, I think these
Mhm.
are actually pretty cool. And this is the wooden one that Greg used for
Hmm.
his. So, you can adjust the strength. So, I think, yeah, what I really wanted to do here was just kind of highlight, you know, how the workflow is kind of through this app, and it's actually pretty fun. It's fun to work with, and if they can incorporate some of the stuff, like a histogram and some masking. Like right now, I'd like to maybe mask the sky, and work on some of the tonal values there. Maybe I don't have that option right now. It's just going to be a global adjustment. Maybe
Yeah.
some of the HSL adjustments. I can bring everything down to black and white, and maybe just bring out the oranges and reds and kind of give it a cool look. Um, at least some type of clipping warnings or something like that would be nice. But I think for a first round on this thing, I think it's pretty good, pretty fun. And I think, Greg, for the price and locking in for lifetime, we can hopefully enjoy some nice updates. Assuming they stick with the app. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Does
Yeah.
anybody have any
Well,
questions in the chat room, or you guys have any questions? You want me to try anything else?
what's the icon at the bottom between that one?
I wonder if that's layers. Oh, my presets. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I
okay.
actually made a preset. So it comes with presets, and I don't know if that's what they cycle through when we hit this one up here. But I did make a
Yeah.
preset off of one just to try it out. So there it is. And
Oh, yeah.
then if I take that down, maybe somewhere around there, and I wonder if it'll show my adjustments if I hit this. Yeah, so my
Hmm.
fancy AI is right there.
Mhm.
You can see I did my adjustments here. Didn't use contrast. Might have cooled it down a bit.
Yeah.
Saturation, you can see my adjustment here. Structure AI just a little bit. Relight, I don't think I touched too much of that. Vignette, and I think, Dave, this one kind of drives you wild too, because really
It's
it
not
should just be a
3D.
slider. Right? It
Yeah.
shouldn't.
Yeah. There's no up and down, even though it looks up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And just being, especially when, like on a mobile app where you don't have a lot of text there, there's so much graphical put on there. You need to make it as intuitive as possible. If I see a plane, I'm going to think, oh, I can go up and down and do something. And it doesn't.
right.
And they have sliders other places. So sometimes left and right's a slider, sometimes it's a plane. You got to be consistent there.
Yeah. And then here's kind of our limitations on working with the colors. Like for me, the bushes are just too green,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I can make them everything more green, but are those a mid-tone? What are they? Let's see. I can make them a little bit more red, but
But
it's
it's a
making the
global
entire,
adjustment too.
yeah, it's a
Right.
Yeah.
global adjustment, which I don't like doing. Then I can obviously make it, more yellow or more blue within the shadows, mid-tones, or highlights, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, there's limitations not having the HSL sliders, but
Yeah.
again, it's for me, it's fun. I'm personally, I like supporting this team, so that's the primary reason that I've supported them. These guys, it's just a small group of guys in Ukraine that kept pushing out new products, and during some pretty challenging times, and these guys
Yeah.
kept their nose to the grindstone and put out some stuff. So I think this is a good step. But anyway, any questions, guys, or anything in comments that we need to address? Hopefully, this gives everybody just kind of a basic overview, at least.
Yeah. I can't think of anything offhand. I think I've pretty much explored just about every part of it, and we'll continue to do so for a bit. And I think it's fun. you know, that cleanup tool there, like I think I was working on something and I had to actually take it to touch retouch to actually
Hmm.
get it to work right.
It actually worked earlier when I did a little practice run on it and actually worked. So I'm kind of surprised. But anyway,
Yeah.
I think that's probably about it. So I will stop sharing and I'll come back to you guys.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing that.
Mhm.
Uh, I think it'll be a beneficial part of the show for people to watch, and I'll put a time stamped link to where you start in the show notes, so people could just jump right to it if they want. If they haven't seen the video and they want to see that part, they can just hit the link and it'll be time stamped to start at the beginning of the edit. So
Mhm.
um, I guess I guess that'll be it for this week then. And uh, anybody that's in there watching right now, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it, and I guess we'll see you guys on the next one too.
See you guys. Thanks for your time.